Juneteenth is an American holiday now, but we should celebrate ourselves. This is a celebration of a victory of Black soldiers. And that's what we really need to understand and celebrate, that Black soldiers fought for the liberation of our people, was able to win that by beating the South, and then to volunteer 20,000 strong or more. Over 20,000 Black men volunteered to go into Texas to free Black people who they heard was still under bondage and living under the whip and the oppression of white people. So these Black soldiers gladly volunteered in April of 1865 to go to Texas, which they did, and were able to bear down on our historical enemy and run him all the way from Texas to points north and west. North all the way to Colorado, west, New Mexico, all the way into Arizona. What happened was the Black soldiers had to fight a furious fight to make one America. And until Blacks got involved in the war, the South was winning the war. General Lee and other Confederate generals were successful. Now, the war of attrition was hurting the South because it was more manpower, more arms in the North. It was more supplies in the North. So strategically, they was cutting off southern points where they could, just get more supplies, develop, the trade routes, the trade lines, and, more or less lock it down. That took time. Black soldiers entered the fray legally with an act of Congress, and therefore Blacks from all over was joining various forces. Suffice it to say that with respect to what I'm referring to, instead of going through the entire Civil War, I'm talking about Juneteenth. Consequently, if we just look at what happened at Appomattox, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant. This is a dozen years. This is quite a ways before he was president. This is while he was a general. He surrendered. Now, when he surrendered, there were a lot of Confederate generals that refused to surrender. They consolidated and went into Texas, the Lone Star State. So Confederate forces from all over. Now, just to show you the imbalance in the war, when the South surrendered, they were allowed, even though they were enemies of the state and took up arms against America, they were allowed to retain their weapons. They were allowed to retain their horses and whatever property they might have had. Now, were properties taken in the South from them? Yes. That's the reality of war. There were things taken from them. They were told in the proclamation, basically, to drop your arms. And that Lincoln made it clear that he would free every Black person. If you continue to fight, you lose everything. He made it crystal clear that it wasn't about freeing Blacks, because he said he would enslave every Black person in America to keep the Union together, or he would free every Black person to keep the Union together. So what is the priority? To keep the Union together. So after the surrender of General Robert E. Lee to General Grant at Appomattox, that was April 9th. Now, Juneteenth is June 19. So the surrender occurred. Black men, 200,000 strong, fought for the freedom and liberation of our people. Black men fought the good fight, kicked the whole lot of butt, battle after battle. Now, the word was the South boasted. These generals that refused to surrender, along with Robert E. Lee, consolidated in Texas. And they said this would truly be their last stand for the lost cause. Now, this is what they're not telling you in this narrative, that Southern generals, officers of every rank, colonel, captain, major, what have you, all the way down, lieutenant, sergeant, all the way down to soldiers that did not give up, went into Texas and said, Texas will not be a free state. It will stay enslaved. Now, black men heard this. These are black men that's now technically free. They fought the good fight. They fought for American citizenship and freedom, to have families, to have black children that will be free, to destroy all badges of slavery. When they heard that there was a place called Texas that refused to free black people, the 9th, the 10th, the 9th Cavalry, the 10th Cavalry, which more commonly known as the Buffalo Soldiers, the 10th Cavalry. But the 9th was just as fierce and had just as many victories, if not more, than the Buffalo Soldiers. You had the 24th, the 25th, the 31st. All these various units from all over got together, over 20,000 strong, and said they volunteered to go to Texas under General Granger. General Granger was a white general. They volunteered under his leadership, and this is from all ranks of blacks, captains on down primarily. Volunteered. Now, we're talking about, as I said, the Civil War ended April 9th. So we're talking about 2 months and 10 days to get there to Galveston. Whites in the South made it crystal clear, anybody coming into Texas will not leave alive. They made that crystal clear. That was their boast. If you come into Texas, you will die in Texas. Well, 20,000 black men said, show and prove. That's what they said, show and prove. So some of the most fierce soldiers that were tried, tested, battle tested, said, okay, we're gonna find out what you got. Well, when they saw those 20,000 black men bearing down on them, they should have stood their ground and fought in Galveston. Well, what did they do? They saw them from a distance. They saw that cloud of dust getting closer and closer, and they had heard from their scouts that black men were coming on horseback, 20,000 strong. To them, it looked like 100,000. He said, they're everywhere. They're coming from all over. They're coming from the moon. They're coming from Mars. They're everywhere. The 20,000 black men. Can you imagine how that must have looked back then in June of 1865, bearing down on them? Well, what happened? They ran like the cowards that they are. Some of them ran north into Colorado. Others ran west. You know that saying, go west, young man, go west. Well, they went west. Some of them ran into New Mexico. Some of them ran so hard they bypassed New Mexico and ended up in Arizona. That's where most of them left and went to. Arizona wasn't even a state at that time. It was a territory. It became a state later. So at that time, that's where they all went. Now McCain's family, Senator McCain, who ran against President Obama, his family goes way back to the Revolutionary War. That's how far his family ties go to war. So obviously he knew he was going to be a serviceman. He served in the Navy. So his family is deeply rooted in Mississippi. Well, how did that side of his family end up in Arizona? Because his family, his great-great-grandfather, whatever, great-great-grandfather ran like the rest of them and ended up all the way in Arizona, ran from black men. Now, that's the part they're not telling you. Now, they're telling you that black people got the news. Black people got the news about they were free. And somehow they giving you a holiday. Yeah, okay, we got a holiday for that. But that ain't the real story. The real story is that one, black men fought for the freedom of black men, women, and children. Those are the facts. Now do your research. Those are the facts that we got our own freedom. Obviously, you can make whatever connections you want to with the Emancipation Proclamation, and then the Civil War acts that came out, of the 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments that all came out, and certainly the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery, 14th Amendment due process and citizenship, 15th the right to vote, black men. So please do your research. Do not go for the false narrative and believe that somehow this holiday, Juneteenth, is based on we got good news. The good news that we were free. Well, again, that goes back over 2 years, 2.5 years. It did not ill affect slavery one bit. That proclamation was nothing but empty words. It was white noise. That's all it was. It was a plea from the federal government, from President Lincoln to the South to put your arms down. As a matter of fact, President Lincoln in '62, to appease white men, gave 160 acres of land. It's called the Homestead Act. To any white man who wanted to go west can claim up to 160 acres of land if you have not bared arms against America. That was the stipulation. A white man could get 160 acres of land, free land from the government, if you have not bared arms against America. And they had soldiers out there to help you kill Indians. Now, you might have to kill some Indians to maintain the land, Native Americans. You had to kill them, and the federal government would help you do that. But they were giving you. So don't think for a second that white people are successful because they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. Some of the richest families in America had federal assistance. So they, the Homestead Act gave them 160 acres of land, free on their own to do whatever they wanted to do with it. So of course they became prosperous and were able to launch great careers and become rich, livestock, growing, planting, what have you, because they was given a great start if you did not bear arms against America. So that leads to the Emancipation Proclamation, from the Homestead Act, the Emancipation Proclamation, to now the Civil War ending, one America, one country, no more Confederate States of America. General Lee surrendered. Ergo, now you have the Juneteenth, the situation where all the Southern soldiers consolidated under generals in Galveston, Texas, and they were set aflight by black men. They not telling you that part. Let's do your research. and find me wrong. That's the part they're not telling you. Shame on all these Black university professors that know better, that's not telling you. They know that part. But since Biden didn't mention that part, other educators are not mentioning that part, somehow we are restricted instead of understanding we fought for our own freedom, and it was Black men, soldiers, tried and tested, tried and tried again, that were able to remove the yoke of enslavement and were able to enjoy some level of freedom. And certainly that can be debated, that, you know, how free we are. And I'm not going to deny that, you know, but there was a level where marriages were now respected to some degree. You could own land, you could enter into contracts. There was parent-child relationships now among Blacks where there was no such thing during slavery time. Their children were not your children. They can be confiscated at any time. Now there was a parent-child relationship, and, you know, like I said, entering into contracts and able to assemble independent Black churches, schools, what have you on. But just wanted to take away a little bit of the myth of what they're spreading about Juneteenth, because they're not going to admit, no white man, self-respecting white man, is going to admit that white soldiers ran from Black soldiers. It's one thing to be defeated. It's a whole nother thing to, after all this boasting and you talking about, come on and bring it, and then when they bear down on you, you run like the cowards that you really are. And that's what actually happened. And that's what the holiday really is. So I celebrate it. I celebrate Black men showing true manhood, showing what left to his own devices, what he can do, what the possibilities are. And that's what Juneteenth shows. Tremendous possibilities. It shows you what we can do when we got a self-made mind, and our mind is made to fight for justice and liberation of our people. And that's what we did then. And so now they're trying to corrupt and change what the true narrative is. But that's what really happened, and that's what we really need to know. And with that, we'll move on. Just want to proud to announce that we're going to have the irritated genie, Ayo Kamante. We're going to have him on the 6th. He's going to be doing Community Cop on July the 6th. Ayo Kamante, commonly known as the irritated genie, our bad, bold brother from Washington, D.C. He's going to be with us on the 6th, and he's going to be in Brooklyn on Wednesday, the 21st, at the Dr. William Mackey Lecture Series. He's going to be with us in person on July the 21st. So stay tuned. We're going to have, as I said, our beloved brother. He's going to be with us on this July the 6th show, and he's going to be with us on the 21st. Look forward to having him. And certainly at that time, we also want to announce the date for the Black Spades documentary by Veronica Kidd. We're looking forward to that too. Two things: the irritated genie's coming to town, and he's going to be doing our show on the 6th. And look forward to the next time that the Black Spades by Veronica Kidd will be shown. Look forward, stay tuned to get both of those. Now to move on, some people never stop fighting the Civil War, and among them is Texas Governor Greg Abbott. He recently signed a bill, and this bill will dictate how current and historical events will be discussed in classrooms. He has made it against the law to teach anything relating to critical race theory, where you actually really discussing what happened, what role institutions played in white supremacy, what institutions still play a role, whether that's business, government, military, paramilitary, intelligence gathering. It's so a whole host of things that can be discussed. Everything from eminent domain and the role that state governments, city governments, federal governments played in breaking the structure of the Black family. He's made that against the law, actually to teach that in Texas. And there are other places, Tennessee, Idaho, and other states have followed suit, fighting what is basically called critical race theory. Now, Senator Ted Cruz and others, so it's not just governors. These are people that are still fighting the Civil War. They're still finding ways, and as you well know, we've discussed it before, that the majority of the books that public schools read from are made in Texas. A significant amount of the textbooks that will be used in the public school system will be made in Texas as well as New York, but so many of them are made in Texas. So we're talking about they're turning slaves into indentured servants. They're watering down what servitude is and what chattel slavery is. It's a whole host of things. They're revising history. So we're talking about actually revisionist history. You can accept that if you choose to, but you won't have the true picture. The evidence is overwhelming as to what happened to us, what happened to the Black family, and how they continue massacres after massacres, things that the government has done, things that was done to us in the military, things that have happened, the George Floyds of the world, is all being swept under the cover with this revisionist history movement to try to save face and to somehow claim. You even have Senator Tim Scott, who's African-American, claim that America as a country is not historically racist. You have these governors. You have all this, the US Senate, so much of it. The Democrats too, but certainly the Republican Party is leading the charge with respect to. They're saying that there's no such thing. America is not a racist country. But at the same time, you have the FBI, the main intelligence gathering that secures the borders of America, saying that the greatest threat to America is now white supremacist organizations. So with this whitewashing of history in terms of critical race theory, they have attacked everything from the 1619 Project, the sister Nicole Hannah Jones did not receive tenure.
I think it's useful to know that when I say that race and racism is foundational to the United States, it is literally foundational. Before there was a United States, we had decided that Black Americans were not going to be treated as human beings, that they were going to be treated as property and owned and not have any rights in the country where they lived and where the country that their children would be born. So in 1607, the English landed Jamestown. 1619, the first Africans are imported to what will become the United States to be slaves. Only 12 years after the English, who will establish the United States land, we have already imported people who will be the distinct class of people in the United States. 1776, we have the Declaration of Independence. So as you see, 150 years before we even decided to become a country, well, they weren't Americans, they were Black people who were held in bondage. And the original Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson, who of course was a slave owner, who owned his own children as slaves and didn't free them until his death, originally put slavery in the Declaration of Independence. And he believed that slavery was actually the scourge of a nation that was claiming it was going to be a beacon of democracy. But in order to get the Declaration ratified by a country that was ruled by slave owners, he had to remove that passage from the original Declaration of Independence, and that is why the passage about slavery is not in that declaration. In 1865, the Civil War and slavery. It's been amazing the last few weeks with Charlottesville and debates about Confederate monuments. And of course, the Confederacy in the United States left the Union and fought against the rest of the Union in order to preserve the institution of slavery. Yet in the United States, we are still debating whether or not Civil War was about slavery in 2017. The Civil War was about slavery, in case anyone's curious. And the Civil War ends slavery in 1865. And then we immediately enter into 100 years of legal apartheid, of legal discrimination against Black Americans that denies them their full citizenship rights. And Black Americans do not get full legal status in the United States, the country of not only their birth, but their parents' birth, their grandparents' birth, their great-grandparents' birth. Most Black Americans have been in the United States before any other immigrant group who came thereafter. But those groups immediately were bestowed with the rights that Black Americans were denied. So the last civil rights law guaranteeing full citizenship rights was passed in 1968. That was the Fair Housing Law, and that's the act that makes it illegal to discriminate against people in housing based on their race, their religion, whether they have a disability, or whether they have children or not. 1976 is a great year. That 1976 is 8 years after we finally get full citizenship rights for Black Americans, and then this lovely young lady is born.
She did not receive tenure or whatever, the rug was pulled under her. I think it's the tenure or whatever the project that was supposed to be financed at her university. It's no longer being financed, the 1619 project. So in any event, it only shows you that there are those that never gave up on the war. So we have to fight that fight. Now, it's unfortunate that at this late date, we're still fighting old battles. But if this is what we have to do, then give no quarter. Give no quarter. Fight the good fight. Stand for the truth. You know, this is what so many great ones among us, you know, Malcolm and so many others. You stand for the truth. Adam Clayton Powell spoke the truth to power. Now, it might not have ended well for them, but we would not have had the Dr. Benz and Clarks and John Jacksons and so many others had we not had those people who were compelled to speak the truth. You know, the truth is not truly in fashion when one thinks of just an Alton Maddox who was not convicted of any crimes, yet his license, his law license, was taken from him for standing up for everyday people. Stood up for a 15-year-old girl who was in fact raped by 6 white men over the course of 3 days. And they was trying to kill her, attempted to kill her by throwing her into a garbage bin, which in turn, the garbage truck would have backed up, took the bin, dumped her body, and we would have never seen or heard from her again for defending her. And then he defended Reverend Sharpton, who faced a 67 count, it was actually a 70 count indictment, and 67 of the counts were beaten back by Alton Maddox without calling one witness. Everybody that spoke for the prosecution, he undressed them in the courtroom. And for that, his law license was taken in plain sight by the white man. This is why other lawyers would not join him. This is why Black professors won't teach the truth. This is why you have elected officials to this very day selling our people down the tubes every day. Brooklyn, the most gentrified of all the boroughs. Look at all these Black elected officials we have in Brooklyn. Congressmen, borough president, state senators, council people, assembly people, all these Black folks. And Brooklyn is more gentrified than literally anywhere else. Like I said, borough president, council people, state senate, all this stuff. There's nothing that shows what you're gonna do like past behavior. So I don't know, whether Eric Adams is gonna win, but well, they're doing a count now as we speak with respect to his running for mayor. But all I could tell you for the record is that Brooklyn's been gentrified under the watch of all of these people. Just look at it. Black people, the indigenous Black people of Bed-Stuy, where are they? They don't exist anymore. They're being uprooted out of their own neighborhood. East New York, Brownsville is next. So I'm just saying that to speak the truth, so many heroes from the past, Martin Delaney and so many others, Henry Howland Garnett, Gabriel Prosser, so many, Nat Turner, that fought the good fight, told the unvarnished truth, stood as men. Lucy Craft Laney, so many that fought the good fight, Rosa Parks and others. Man, let me tell you something. You spit in the face of all those, who came before us when you won't stand for truth and you go along with the system and you get your car, your house, and whatever other trinkets that the white people are gonna give you for selling out your own. And when we have meetings, you ever see a community meeting and an elected official comes into the room? They whisk them up. They wave them, come on, come on, come on, come on. And come right up to the front. Sit right next to the leader of that organization, get a front row seat. You right up there on the dais. The honorable so-and-so is coming into the room. Black elected officials should be lucky that ain't nobody chasing them every time they're seen in public. You literally need to question them. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you that you have to respect Jewish people because they're gonna ask you as a Black elected official, whatever elected official you might be, they're gonna ask you your position on Israel. And if they don't like it, your position on Israel, if it's not favorable, they're gonna dismiss you. They're not gonna vote for you. They're not gonna support you. If anything, they're gonna try to get you out of office. Now, what Black elected official is gonna say race first, Africa first, the Caribbean first, Black people first? They wouldn't dare say race only. Don't even ask them that. Say race first. Even if you dress it up and say, well, I'm dealing first and foremost, I'm going to emphasize where the need is the greatest. Dress it up a little, say something. You just want to be everything to everybody. And by being everything to everybody, you're nothing for your people. And this is what we've had, all of these consensus candidates, the Charlie Rangos, the Dinkins, and all them of the world that did nothing for our people, but kowtowed to others. And you see that every day. What election officials are standing up? I know Cynthia McKinney did. It ain't no doubt about that. Cynthia McKinney, outstanding elected official. The best we've had since Adam Clayton Powell. But we need more Cynthia McKinney. We need more Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Because if we don't have them, you're going to keep seeing a continuous amount of sellouts after sellouts. Now, just want to tell you for the record, I know time is short, but let me just tell you for the record. I seen where the family of Alton Sterling just received a settlement. Now, you know, Alton Sterling was killed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He was allegedly selling CDs and bootleg CDs and DVDs, what have you, from his van. They rolled up on him, took him down to the ground, and eventually shot him. It was a scuffle that ensued. They took him down to the ground and then shot him. So we're talking about his death, which really was totally unnecessary if you saw the video. They could have made the arrest if he was in fact selling illegal items, then effect the arrest. You don't have to kill him. So he was killed by Baton Rouge police officers. Well, 5 years later, the family just settled for $4.5 million. To me, that does not, that's not justice. That's certainly not fairness and equity. That's really a slap in the face. That's hush money so that the family will go away and say no more. When you're talking about $4.5 million. So they just received that judgment in the form of a settlement. Now, as I was mentioning before, the Department of Justice just did a study, and they're saying the two greatest threats to domestic stability were racially and ethnically motivated violent extremists. They're saying that those that are advocating for white superiority, in other words, white supremacy, and they're voicing anti-government sentiments and violent extremists such as militias. Now, this is intelligence agencies that have known this for a while. We went through former FBI Director Comey identifying Black identity extremists. Yet there was no upheaval among Black people where Black people were killing cops or blowing up buildings or undermining the government in any way. But was nothing but a continuation of COINTEL. But look now what's happening. Now, yes, in 08, 012 and other times, they was coming out with memos. They were coming out with memos because they realized that these white people ain't playing, that they're building up, they're training, they're organizing all over the country. And now there's more consolidation. Now, this was done with US senators and a sitting US president, as we saw on January the 6th, 2021. You saw days prior, they went on a tour. It was sort of reconnaissance of sorts, where they received prior information as to where certain offices were of certain leaders of the Democratic Party. You had them actually hunting for the vice president, Mike Pence, because he did not adhere to the whims of President Trump. They were looking for Nancy Pelosi. They were looking for Black leaders of the Democratic Party. They actually threatened the Hakeem Jeffries family. Many of you asked me about, is Dr. J okay? I said, yes. I called Dr. J and we talked. Professor Leonard Jeffries, just in case you don't know him as Dr. J, you know, Professor Leonard Jeffries, who's the uncle of Hakeem Jeffries and Hassan Jeffries, the professor at Ohio State, as well as Hakeem Jeffries, who's like about the number 3 and number 4 man in the Democratic Party in Congress. So in any event, their family was threatened. So I'm saying that to say that even the FBI, who much rather track down Black so-called extremists, even they have to acknowledge that right now, the biggest threat to American stability, American domestic stability, they admit, is white militias and white supremacist groups. So it's not that they fell in love with Black people, is that they just have to acknowledge the fact that the biggest threat in America now is white supremacy, because you've let it go so far that they're going to turn, it's going to be some white victims in this. So the collateral damage is not just going to be Black people. They will kill some Black people, they will kill some white people in order to kill more Black people. And that's becoming increasingly apparent. So when you put in the context, whether it was, we talked earlier, Soweto, we talked about what happened in South Carolina. These are white people involved in a massacre in Soweto. There's a white man who killed Black people that was bowing to the goodness of the Lord at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, they are admitting that the greatest threat to American stability is, in fact, white supremacy. Well, wasn't the country founded on white supremacy? Did you not kill the indigenous people of this land and take it and claim it to be your own? Native American was killed ad nauseum. This is a fact. So you can apply whatever critical race theory and fight it all you want. You can engage in revisionist history and act it as if Native Americans said, oh, you can have the land. And by the way, my sister's right there. Go rape her. Go rape my sister. Go infect her with your European diseases. You know, what they call the coffin disease. As soon as they came in contact with Native Americans, they started getting all kind of flus, just all coffin diseases, they called it back then, which ended up being all kind of pneumonia, flus, common colds of Europeans was killing them. And then we're not going to even mention the syphilis and gonorrhea and all that stuff from the raping of men, and certainly whether it was in Mexico with Montezuma or Cortez, you know, with Cortez, or whether it's just all the so-called pioneers, the pilgrims who came here was killing Native Americans here in the Northeast or the Midwest or in the West, the far West. So you can act like those things didn't happen. But now the chickens are coming home to roost. You have white people out of control. They are wedded to their guns. They are permitted to carry guns. They're now telling people in school, carry guns, in church, carry your gun. All over, white folks are now killing other white people in movie theaters and in houses of worship and malls, shopping malls, schools. They're going all over, and they're not giving any quarter. They're just about it. And this is the way they resolve problems with the gun. So you see this time and time again. But when you think of the face of crime, the face that they use, it's a black face. When you think of the face of welfare, they use blacks, they use Latino. Even though more white people on welfare than anyone else. Well, your excuses go quite naturally. It's more white people in America. So, of course, they inflate the welfare rolls. Okay, that's a given. But why is the face black if it's more white people on welfare? Why is the face of crime black if white people commit more crimes? Now, it's extraordinary the rate with respect to per square the capita for every 1,000 people. It's more likely, you're probably 7-8 times more likely to go to jail than a white person, even if it's a lesser offense, you're going to jail. White people got to work hard to be locked up and be arrested. When you see a white person in the Bowery or someplace else, all drunk or begging for money on a corner, you know, Paul Mooney used to say that's a waste of white flesh, because he understood clearly that you've grown up with benefits. You've grown up with so much advantage that it's hard to fail. A white man with a GED is more employable or can more likely get the job than a black person with a 4-year a bachelor's. A white man with a GED or a high school diploma is better, is more than likely they can get the job over somebody with a 4-year bachelor's. But a white man with a bachelor's, he's better than any black PhD anywhere. He's gonna get the job. He will get the proper training and he will be your boss. And they know that. And that's not anything revelatory. That's not revelatory. That's just America. That's the way it's always been. And you know that to be true. Well, why am I saying that? I'm saying that because we are now being hoodwinked with this Juneteenth. True history is under attack. So they are against what they call critical race theory. They're against the 1619 Project. They are equating to teach about what really happened in America. They said to teach that is the equivalent of the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, which makes absolutely no sense. You can't equate one with the other. But in any event, what I'm just trying to say is that cling to your own. We have to become more strident, more aggressive in speaking our own truth. We're the only ones we got. We're the only ones we need. If you're waiting for the white oppressor to walk in your door and say, gee, buddy, I'm tired of oppressing you. You know, we're gonna reverse the switch and we're gonna put you on top for the next 100 years. You're spitting into the wind. It's not gonna happen. So my challenge to you today is to be as great as those before us. Be the woman that Harriet Tubman was. Be the man that Martin Delany was. Stand for truth. Stand for what's right. That'll make you a better Christian. That'll make you a better Muslim. That'll make you a better person if you stand for the truth, along with all the other great things you might be involved with. You might be teaching. You might be a good family person. You might just do a whole host of things and help. You might give aid to the poor. You might, it's a whole lot of things you do, but stand for truth. Don't do what elected officials just play the game. You playing the game to what end? What are you gonna do at the end? What's your end game? Just to get a pension? You can do better than that. You can help our people. If Harriet Tubman and others are looking down at us now, if Frederick Douglass and so many others are looking down at us now, if MLK, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., if he's looking at us now, what is he saying? Can you imagine Rosa Parks saying to gang members, you shooting him because he's wearing blue, and you shooting him because he's wearing red? She said, I didn't fight for you to do that. Harriet Tubman, she carried a gun. Matter of fact, she might have carried 2 guns. But it really wasn't for our people. It was for the enemy. If she pulled a gun on a black man, it was a black man who was getting ready to run back to the slave master to tell them that X number of enslaved Africans were escaping. And she threatened to blow their brains out. That aside, those weapons was for the enemy. I say to you today, marshal your forces, all hands on deck. Just love each other. It's not hard if you can get that poison that's taught to us by the oppressor out of your mind. You can do that. Take 90 days, take a week or a month or whatever it takes. Fast, purify yourself, clean yourself up. And that was the majesty of what we were able to do. Those who just are such key parts of our history were those who was able to love regardless. The sacrifices of an Amos Wilson to teach our people the psychology of the Black child and teach us about whether, what is accurate or not, what's the essence of Black on Black violence, and talking about the blueprint to Black power. Frances Cress Welsing and her teaching, profound. 2 of the greatest minds we've ever developed, both in the last century. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and Dr. Amos Wilson, 2 of the greatest we've ever produced. We produced them then, we can produce more now. So the challenge is, where are you standing right now? Is the ground around you sacred? Will you protect that ground? Tell yourself when you wake up tomorrow morning, today I will tell no lies. Today I will speak no mistruths. Today I will be honest and upright with my brother and sister. Can you do that? Can you wake up tomorrow and the next day? Try it one day, try 24 hours without cursing, without lying, without stealing, without backbiting. Try it for 24 hours. You might feel better. You might end up looking better. You might feel better. A stress-free day. I will not lie to my brother. I will not take from my sister. I will be upright and be honest. Black man, Black woman, protect the Black child. Accept your own and be yourself. Love God and see God when you see the face of a Black man or woman. This is why so many shows, I say namaste. That means the God in me, recognize the God in you. That means that which is divine and eternal in me, recognize that which is divine and eternal in you. So I say namaste. If I say hotep, I'm saying peace, brother, peace, sister. Say that tomorrow to someone. Say it to someone you don't know. Shake a hand, make a friend, and tomorrow be honest with everyone in your circle. And that way you can strengthen the bonds of unity that we already have. And we can look in history, and in fact, we can see ourselves in that history. Black man, Black woman, protect the Black child. Again, accept your own and be yourself. And with that, I say to you all, peace and power. Peace and power. Just want to proud to announce that we're going to have the irritated genie, Ayo Kamante. We're going to have him on the 6th. He's going to be doing Community Cop on July the 6th. Ayo Kamante, commonly known as the irritated genie, our bad, bold brother from Washington, D.C. He's going to be with us on the 6th, and he's going to be in Brooklyn on Wednesday, the 21st at the Dr. William Mackey Lecture Series. He's going to be with us in person on July the 21st. So stay tuned. We're going to have, as I said, our beloved brother. He's going to be with us on this July the 6th show, and he's going to be with us on the 21st. Look forward to having him. And certainly at that time, we also want to announce the date for the Black Spades documentary by Veronica Kidd. We're looking forward to that too. Two things: the irritated genie's coming to town, and he's going to be doing our show on the 6th. And look forward to the next time that the Black Spades by Veronica Kidd will be shown.